provide access. Our goal is to provide accessible and personalized mentorship to high school students and helping them get into their preferred university. We employ a swipe to match model, which connects high schoolers with current university students who best match their profiles. We also recommend highly personalized content to students via smart algorithms. We strive to be the #1 content and platform provider in the UAE for students wishing to study both locally and abroad. We hope to spread the Jagged message and get both high school students and university students signing up. If you're a high school student, please sign up through our Mentee sign up form. And if you're a university student or employed and are interested in the Jagged platform and in participating in mentorship, please fill out our mailing list form. All our links can be found on our link tree or on Instagram. Today's topic is going to be about how to choose a university. And I'd just like to start the event by by letting each panelist introduce themselves. I'll start with Khalid. Maybe tell us your university, your age, what major you are, and what high school you went to.
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. Hope y'all doing well. My name is Khalid Zuzgera. I'm from the Philippines and Palestine, and I'm 18 years old. I went to Adnan schools in Abu Dhabi, and I graduated in 2019. And I'm now a first-year multimedia design student at the American University of Sharjah here in the UAE.
Okay, great. I'd like to ask Fatma next to introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Fatma Al Ghafari. I'm a 19-year-old student studying at the University of Manchester in the UK. I study a Bachelor of Science in Physics with Astrophysics, and I graduated from the School of Research Science, SRS, in Dubai.
Perfect, thank you, Fatma. And I'll go to Shaima next.
Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Shaima. I'm 17 years old and I go to New York University Abu Dhabi. I'm a first-year student. And in terms of my major, I'm still undecided because NYUAD is an institution that is built on a liberal arts and science education. I'm able to explore different disciplines in my first year, along with my classmates, of course, and in the upcoming years. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Okay, and last but not least, we have Hazza.
Hello, everyone. I go to Purdue University in Indiana. I'm 20 years old, currently a sophomore, and I study aerospace engineering with a focus in astronautics. In terms of my high school, I went to Al Batin Academy in Abu Dhabi. And I guess the biggest challenge that I had when I picked the university was one that offered sort of a social life that was acceptable for me.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And I just want to let the audience know that today is an interactive workshop. So we'd love if you would send your questions in through the Q&A box or through the chat box as well. And even if you'd like to ask someone personally, you can ask to get unmuted to ask any of the panelists, in real life. Great. I'd like to start by introducing the first topic, which is why do you guys go to college? And I want to let the panelists to let the audience know that we've sent a worksheet to them, and if you've got that printed out, I'd like to ask the participants first to note down 1 or 2 reasons as why you think you want to go to college. And then I'd like to hear what my panelists here would give as answers to that question. Okay,
I can.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, why go to college? I think this was a really tough question to answer. I feel like going to college was just always given to me. I feel like it's always been a part of me, and I always knew that ultimately I would end up in university. And even I remember in high school, if you knew me, you'd know that I've always wanted to go to Harvard. and people would always like they'd associate that with me, and it was just like sort of always a part of me and always defined me. And I guess looking back, I think that the reason why college is so important to me is because I believe it's the key to opening the door to the future, like, and new opportunities. And I feel like although the future it remains uncertain, um, good things are in store, and I still have hope. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Shayma. Any of my other panelists would like to answer the question next?
I'll bite the bullet, I suppose. I think one of the most important things that I look to when I apply to college is based upon the original sort of response to that social life, as well as weather, as well as campus life, and the beauty of the campus itself. Now, they might not be major factors in terms of postgraduate life, but during my time in university, I wanted to strike a balance between my satisfaction as well as academics. And I think that's very hard to do, but importantly, what you want to do is not just focus on the academics, but also the surrounding campus and the surrounding city even, to see if that would be the right type of city to study in for you.
I agree with both my colleagues, Shayma and Hazza. Like we always say, especially nowadays, that okay, we're gonna graduate high school, we're gonna go to university, but why? Like the question is why? I think for me at least, it's like giving back to the society that raised me. Alhamdulillah, being a part of the United Arab Emirates, it's developing daily. All of this because our ancestors worked hard to get us to where we are. I believe it's my duty and all of our duty, to be honest, to keep working on this, to add to this, to go and find knowledge, seek knowledge, and then use this to help better society and the world.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like I can relate to what Fatma said. Yeah, like even though I'm not Emirati, I do see the question of like why college in the first place as something rather personal, because considering like my family's history, where from my Filipino side, which is my mother's side, my mother was the first in her family to go to college, and she was the first to graduate from college in her family because her family was basically relied on farming back in the Philippines. And then she was the only one who ever finished her secondary education and then insisted. She actually pushed to go to college instead of, just waiting and then, laying back and, just taking it easy like the rest of her family members, as well as like from my dad's side, my Palestinian side, like his parents are Palestinian refugees, and then he went to the United States to earn a university degree to come back here and work. And to me, it's just continuing that sort of tradition that they have been given the opportunity to earn an education, and I wanna continue that, right? And it isn't just sort of like a mindless thing of like I'm just continuing with what the family's doing. It's because like I'm actively pursuing it because I want to be good at whatever it is that I'm pursuing in university. So it's not just like, oh, I'll go to university and then get a degree, because I feel like a lot of people would have this sort of pressure on like you got to go to university to get a degree, so you get a job, so you gotta get paid and all that. But I don't think it has to be that way. Like there's always some special reason that everybody has it, and to me I definitely have that special reason.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Would you like to say something,
Also,
Hazza?
yes, sorry about that. I seem to have misunderstood the question initially. Though most of my reasons still do stand. I guess in terms of why I want to go to college is I absolutely hate stagnation. And what that means is I don't like not having a change in scenery. So I know this sounds sort of rash and a bit bold, but one of my main reasons for going to college is actually to have such a drastic change of scenery that it forces me to sort of take in every detail in life even more.
I love that. Thank you so much, guys. And I agree, like it was the same for me when I chose to go to university. It wasn't just because You know, like we have this sort of path, like you graduate from school, you go to university, and after that you get a job. I wanted to do something different, and that's why, for example, I graduated from Sorbonne University. So I wanted to do something that was a bit different than what everyone else did throughout our society. So I completely understand you guys. Anyways, I'd like to go to our second topic now, which is what to look for in a university. For example, first of all, I'd like to ask the audience on the paper we've sent. I'd like you to list what colleges are you considering. Like, for example, write three colleges that you're considering to apply to, and just write that so you have a sort of image of where you want to go. And I'd like to ask my panelists here, what were your top three universities of choice?
Well, if I could go first, actually, I would not recommend this because I was very foolish and adamant and very very insistent on one path that I never really considered a plan B or anything like that. I had initially two universities in mind. First was NYU AD, New York University in Abu Dhabi, and then my second one was the American University of Sharjah. So, you know, for all intents and purposes, I, went through the application process for NYU Abu Dhabi. Didn't work out. I always had AUS, and I'm in AUS now, and I'm, like I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So, but yeah, I only had two universities in mind, and I also think that everybody should be like much more prepared than I was. Like, definitely research more universities. Like try to expand your horizons a bit. Don't just look like wherever you have the opportunity to study. Definitely look into those as long as the university matches you.
Okay, does anyone else have any three top universities?
I can go, but before I go, I just wanted to ask if it would be possible to answer the Q&A questions that we have open so far.
Sure.
Okay, I'm not sure if how I'm supposed to do it on Zoom, but I'm going to press answer live. So the first question is, how long did you spend on research universities? Or I guess, how long did you spend researching universities? Honestly, it's over a period of months. However, at the same time, it's not something that you sort of focus on for those months. It's something that you come back to time and time again because it's such a sensitive topic that your feelings can change overnight on a certain university. So you have to do this process over a prolonged period of time to make sure that you are truly happy with whatever you pick. Because thoughts change overnight. However, your general satisfaction will not change over the course of, say, a month or 2 months. So ideally, you don't want to spend a lot of time every day, but keep slowly working on it so that you can figure out what you truly want. And the second question
Yeah.
was, should I take a gap year or no? Do you
I
want
think
to answer that?
Yeah, because I actually think that I'm going to answer this because I actually took gap year. So I graduated in 2019 from high school, and the one of the reasons why I took a gap year, well, apart from not getting to university, and then I was, instead of like applying directly to AUS and um, immediately starting university, I was like like maybe I should take a break. And certainly it was honestly one of the best decisions I've made. I know I can speak from personal experience. Other people's opinions may vary, but I feel like, especially considering the time that we're in now, a lot of people are, heavily reconsidering whether taking on university like right now during this time of the pandemic and everything, and people are online and being socially distanced and everything, and maybe you're not getting the right I guess value for your education. um, it's a valid concern, and it's definitely uh, something you want to consider when you take a gap year. But you also want to consider about, like, what do you want to do in your gap year? to me, it wasn't just, oh, I'm gonna take this one long break of doing nothing. You know, it was like, okay, let me think of what I want to do. I want to do more photography. I want to engage more in my hobbies. I want to spend more time researching this. It's about like more like using your free time more, but also giving your brain that rest so you can like smoothly transition from high school to university. Because not everyone's gonna, you know, be able to transition from high school to university within the span of 2 months. Some people may need only 2 months. Some people may need a whole year. So think about it, and whichever conclusion you come to, just know that it's the best for you, and hopefully whichever decision that you make is going to be for the best.
Of course.
I'd like to know, yeah, if any one of you wants to answer the question next.
I was just going to emphasize on Khalid's point of not limiting your options. Like ever since I was in year eight, I was like, I want to go to Manchester University. I mean, it was so limiting. You have millions of universities all around. Try, apply. You won't lose anything. Read about other universities. Keep your options open so that you don't have plan A, you have plan B, C, D, E, and so on. So my top three universities was University of Manchester, and alhamdulillah, I got in. But University of Leeds and University of Birmingham. And just a side note, I did not start in the University of Manchester. I got accepted into Leeds and I studied in Leeds. And then life took a funny way around, and now I'm in Manchester. So don't worry, it will work out.
I agree 100% because I limited myself at the beginning. I only had one option and I didn't even think of applying to any other university. I was fortunate enough to get accepted. So I was like, Alhamdulillah, at least I got in. But after like looking around and thinking of millions of other universities, I was like, why did I limit myself to just choosing this one university? So I completely agree that you should never limit yourself and research every single university you can even think of. Um, Throughout this topic, I'd like to ask you guys, like, what do you guys look in a college to before you apply? Because I want the audience here to list their wants and their needs. For example, like, is location important to you? Like, for example, Shayma, I think you're from Sharjah. So how was the transition to NYU to Abu Dhabi different? And was it like a complete game changer? Like Hazza said, he really liked that change of scenery, that kind of, I don't know, push. And is size important to you? Do you want like a big university, a huge campus, or a small one where it's like compressed and there's not many of you? Um, so I just like the audience to think of these different things. First of all, is location important? Do you want to drive for like an hour, or do you want something that's like 15, 20 minutes away from your house? Is the size important? Like I said, do you want a huge campus or a small one? And think about the people you want to be surrounded with. Do you want a multicultural experience? Do you want a diverse community? Or, for example, would you like a more local community, for example, like Zayed University or the higher colleges of technology, things like that? And are extracurriculars, sorry, I have such a hard time saying that word, important for you or not? These are just a couple of things I'd like you guys to think about, and I'd like you to differentiate what is a want and what is a need. And maybe Khalid can just emphasize more on the difference between what's a need and what's a want, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually an experience that I gained thanks to the university prep program, or UPP for short, that I attended in 2018 with the NYU. Um, so when you're thinking about your needs and wants from a university, you're really trying to prioritize exactly what it is that matters to you, that you want from a university. Because I feel like during the application process, a lot of people, and I think this came up in a question as well, a lot of people can get lost in the idea of looking at stats or like rankings, or like what's the number one university in this region, what's the number one university in this field, in this major, what's the number one this, and that. But I feel like when you start to look at numbers, it gets even more confusing than it actually is. And I feel like once you really want to understand what university is the right one for you, you really need to start digging deep. And by digging deep, I mean by first asking yourself, okay, what do I need from university? Like, what is absolutely essential that I cannot compromise? So, and this is going to like vary widely um, when it comes to everybody. Like not everyone's priorities are going to be the same. Like some people might consider like a small campus size to be a priority. Some people might consider having the university in their country as being a priority, as a need. Some people might consider even in the same city. Some people might consider that as a want, that they'd prefer their university to be in their country, but they wouldn't mind studying abroad. So it's really you're trying to think of factors like that, like the campus size, the culture, the programs, the overall student culture of the university. How well do you see yourself within the students of the university? Um, those are things that you want to like create sort of like a list of, and then see like what do you think is the most important that you absolutely need and that you cannot bank on losing towards the stuff that you wouldn't mind, like taking off if like you wouldn't really matter if it was there. And then from there on, that's when you actually go and like start looking for universities. So like let's say you want a big university with an open campus um, and it has to be in the UAE. So you might start looking up like, okay, big universities in the UAE. You might get something like University of Sharjah, American University of Sharjah, stuff like that. From there, those are when you find your names. And then when you find your names, that's when you go and research even more. That's when you research the university, what their campus culture is like, what their programs are, how do they fit you most importantly. What does this university offer that fits your needs and wants? And whichever one aligns the most is what's perfect for you. It's not whatever is perfect for a website or whatever a website tells you is your number one. It's what your number one is. And I think that's the most important part.
Ruba, you're muted.
Sorry. Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Khalid. I completely agree with everything you said. I'd like to direct the same question to Shema. Maybe you can tell me about your experience with NYUAD. How is it fitting for you?
Sure, of course. You asked me in the beginning if it was like if there any drastic changes happened as I transitioned to NYUAD. As of now, no drastic changes because I'm still at home. I haven't moved to campus, so there isn't really much to see. But I believe there's a lot, like already, I feel like I've learned so much through interacting with the people there and my classes, my professors, and my classmates. And although it's like interactions are very limited, I did sort of find a way to connect with people. And I think that's also what made NYUAD stand out to me. It's because I think one of my needs when I looked for university was the community there. And so I was looking for a diverse community, not just in terms of background, but in terms of, beliefs, thoughts, and just stuff like that. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so I guess the community here is very, I think, intellectually stimulating, and that was exactly what I was looking for in a university. And I just want to go back to Khalid and Fatma's point in the beginning, how they sort of limited themselves to one uni. I feel like that's a universal experience because I've been through that as well. I limited myself to only Harvard. I just wanted Harvard, and it was just like, it was just really, anyways. So I feel like in situations like these, creating a college list really comes in handy. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this structure, but there's this thing where you sort of categorize the universities you want to apply to into sort of your safety schools, your reach schools, and your match schools. So you have your safety schools where you're guaranteed to get into. And for me, that was local schools here in the UAE. So AUS, UOS, HCT, Zayed, and stuff like that. And then there's your match schools where your stats, like it's very likely for you to get into. it is a bit challenging, but your stats are like what they're looking for, and you feel like your personal essay or like your application can stand out. And then there's your reach schools. So for me, that was the Ivy League schools that I applied to and the private universities that I applied to, which are Harvard and MIT. And also NYUAD was a reach school for me. And yeah, that's what I have to say.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Fatma too, since you're doing this year abroad, right? But it's still online. How is your
Yeah.
experience as a first year?
As a first year, I mean, to be honest, I'm looking at the advantage side. I'm getting to study abroad while still being around my family, so that's a major plus. But a key word I grabbed from Khalid's, like I couldn't agree more, but the key word is compromise. Like really listing your universities and everything, you will need to make compromises. Like you can't find the A plus 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 and everything. You need to look at the positives, the negatives, and make your decision. Like I always wanted to study abroad, but UK was like what I'm mainly like. I mainly wanted the United Kingdom. When I introduced the idea of Australia and the US to my parents, they were like, Fatma, location. I was like, okay, Mama, UK is also abroad. They were like, it's a 7 hour flight. It's near. You can come on weekends, Easter. She thought like in that way strategically. US, Australia, 19-hour flight, jet lag. You need to think of all these minor things that they don't come straight away to your head. So location is very important, and compromises. Like as he said, some people might like put the academia as the prioritize the academia and like the ranking of the university, while others might prioritize the life and the community. I think, as Hazza mentioned. So really list everything on a piece of paper, clear your thoughts, and hopefully you'll get a easy decision.
And there was a question actually from an anonymous attendee which says, if I'm a girl, how can I tell my family about going outside of the country? So would you give us some pointers on that? Like, how did you break the news that you wanted to go abroad?
I mean, thankfully nowadays it's a kind of a bit easier, but we still face this issue, the stereotype of a girl going abroad. It's still sometimes a shock. So I would suggest introducing this idea a bit early, not graduating and then I want to go to UK. I started when I was in year 10. I used to tell my parents I really want to go to the UK. Like my degree, I want to study astrophysics and like okay, they do offer some degrees here with astrophysics, but the professors there, the university there, the life there, it's different. And I introduced it earlier, and they were like, "Fine, Fatma, you get the grades, then we'll see." So and I like persisted. I really wanted to go to the UK. I really wanted. When I got the grades and I got the acceptance and everything, slowly, they didn't say yes. So they didn't say no. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is try to introduce the idea early and try to show them your research that you are ready for this. One of the main things they're afraid of is that you are not ready to face the world there. But life is not that different nowadays. The UAE is uh, like pretty civilized now. There's no difference between UK and UAE if you're comparing it to maybe 60, 70 years ago. Like the life there and here, it's very similar now. So try to tell them that.
I mean, I completely agree and I agree with the point that about introducing the subject or the topic in early, just to give them like a head start of thinking and actually like planning the entire thing for you. They'll be like, oh, she's gonna go here now. That's because that's the same thing I did too when I wanted to go for a course abroad. I had to tell them like a year in advance, oh, I'm going to this course. And like, I'm just like checking out like their vibes with it. Are they okay with it? Are they not okay with it? Just to
Measuring.
see. Yeah, exactly. And thankfully, yeah, I come from a supportive family too, which they said the same thing. If you get the grades and you show us that you're responsible enough, and that's what I did. I worked really hard that year to show them that I'm responsible, I can take care of myself and everything. So I mean, thankfully, you just have to, I think, introduce the topic in early and do your research. I completely agree about doing your research because I had to show them I'm going here and for this long, and they just saw that I was completely prepared. So yeah, great, guys. Maybe we can ask Hazza about his experience abroad. Are you doing it online or how is it going with you?
All right, it's to say the least, it's been a trip. Uh, I did the spring semester, half of the spring semester at the very least, sort of abroad before they had us come back so we could do a lockdown and everything. The switch from I think what I could sort of see the most is the contrast between online learning as well as in-person learning, because I did have to switch mid-semester and had to do like a flight during spring break and everything. But I think I saw a thing on sort of a form for our community or like our school, and it said even though online learning feels like it's taking so much, you do not factor into account the time that you spend attending lectures, the time that you spend commuting to lectures, as well as the time spent sort of studying. Because I realized that me and most likely a lot of other people sort of feel like they're spending a lot of time focusing on university work, but it's sort of like equivalent to the time spent on campus as well. So I think the most glaring difference I can see is it sort of feels hectic for the first few weeks because of how it can feel different while you get your schedule set in order, as well as setting a foundation for how you go about your week, like a schedule for like the Monday to Friday workload, etc., etc. And I think in terms of what I look for in a college, which I assume was the original question posed, uh, location was really important to me. However, I sort of messed that one up because I never factored into account the Indiana winter or the Midwest winter, which is absolutely bitter. Sort of, it feels like the weather is trying to attack you personally, but at the same time, you could always layer up, but you can never like take off so many layers. So always keep that into account. The weather is actually important because sometimes I remember I'd walk to lecture at 7 a.m. and it was still dark outside. I'd leave my lecture 1 hour later, and this was like a calculus lecture, and it's still dark outside. By the time I leave my second lecture, it would start brightening up. So that was really sort of trippy in the winter to sort of get used to that sort of late sunrise. And I guess campus life was really important to me, but the most important factor that I see right now are the extracurriculars, and they cannot be understated. Your extracurriculars are going to dictate your postgraduate life. Like a good GPA is important, uh, having the courses done is important, but having actual experience is even more important, and showing passion for things you believe in is also more important. While I understand some people do extracurriculars in high school as a way to be more appealing to colleges, they truly do matter in the workforce as well as to sort of show what you're passionate about and give you an outlet for maybe creativity or some other form of thinking, I suppose. And I
I
guess,
sorry.
sorry to make this so long, I just wanted to add one last point. And I guess in terms of the community, it was actually awesome. Like I as a person, I always sort of try to assimilate as fast as possible into community. I blend in, but it was a truly new environment. It was something that I never even experienced before. Being in this high school that I was, which was like sort of an international community, it helped me a bit to sort of assimilate with new people. But the people there were really friendly. So you do want to research how the campus people are like when you do research for university, because I do know some campuses in the US have a reputation for being like cold. I'm not going to name specific names, but if you do research that, that might show up. So you do want to think about that, because I think having a support system is almost as important as choosing the right university, because it's sort of like an insurance policy for yourself to make sure that you don't like fall out of so it just make sure that you don't like end up being unhappy with your choice. And I guess that's it for that question.
Okay, thank you. I think someone else wanted to add something. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I just wanted to add the point of extracurriculars. Don't underestimate it. At the end of the day, if you're looking for a certain degree, it can be found in many universities. But what else does that university have to offer? Physics with astrophysics, it's available in many universities. Why did I choose Manchester University? Because uh, based on the research I did prior, I knew that the University of Manchester does language courses in addition to your degree. So I chose to study Russian because it's like one of the requirements to be an astronaut, which I'm aiming to. So you know these little things they matter. So now I study Russian at the university instead of studying it by myself. The university that teaches me physics teaches me Russian. So it's these little things and weather and location, many things, all these little factors, they affect your choice at the end of the day. So do your research, really, really, don't underestimate it.
great. Thank you so much, guys. And I completely agree about the extracurricular point, to be exact, because it is extremely important, especially for postgraduate studies, because they tend to look into what you actually did throughout your years, other than just getting your degree. So it's a really important thing to focus on and check because, and there's a lot of like all university websites usually state what extracurriculars they have, what sort of clubs they have at the university. So you should include that into your research because it is a really important factor. Okay, so I'd like to move on to the next topic now, because so the next topic is the admissions components. Like, what are the practical steps for to applying to the university now? And I just wanted to say, because this is we're aiming for it to be a really interactive discussion. um, Feel free to ask to be unmuted and just simply ask questions if you have a specific question to ask one of the panelists. I'd like to start by the UAE admissions. Maybe I can ask Khalid on how he applied in the UAE, first of all.
Yeah, so I applied to the American University of Sharjah, and I think because it's a private university, it doesn't necessarily have the same admissions procedures as public universities do in the UAE. So as far as I'm familiar, public universities in the UAE do have to go through some form of application process through a governmental website of some sort where you upload your documents and then you select your universities and then you basically get your admissions from there. However, in the case of private universities in the UAE, like the American University of Sharjah, they have their own dedicated application portal. And so in the case of AUS, they had their own application website. So I just had to go ahead and fill it in. And it was a really straightforward process. Didn't take me that much time at all. Just had to provide the necessary documents and all the testing scores and whatnot. And just a really short, like a 100-word response on like my personal background and what I'm looking forward to in AUS.
Okay, great. Do you know when was like the time frame or how long it took to
Oh yeah,
apply?
yeah. So I applied in June of this year, and because their application deadline is way later than compared to like universities that rely on like let's say the Common App or the UCAS system. So their deadline I think is around July or something like that if I recall correctly. And as soon as I applied, I believe I got my admissions. It's admissions on a rolling basis. So whenever you apply, it takes a certain amount of time. I believe I got my admissions decision around 2 weeks right after I submitted my application. So yeah, like whenever you submit your application, at least in the case of AUS, it's on a rolling basis. So within 2 weeks, you'll just get your admissions decision like straight away.
Oh, great. That's amazing. I just wanted to state that for the locals and for government public universities, there's NAPO, and they recently added Sorbonne University onto NAPO. So you log in and put in your details and your transcripts and just choose the top three choices you want. And Sorbonne University, because it was a private university, but with the grant now it got included into NAPO. That's it's included in the NAPO, sorry, system, so you can just apply straight away from that for locals. I'd like to ask Fatma about what you did through NAPO because I hear there's a sort of a different procedure for applying abroad, but through NAPO. So if you'd like to give your experience.
Yeah, of course. So through the NAPO, when you submit your documents and it's time to choose your options, you have all the government websites and Sorbonne as well. When I graduated, it was there since it's been added recently. And then you have another option is to add abroad. So when you choose abroad, then you choose United Kingdom or United States, and what's the degree of your choice, and like the university of your choice and the degree of your choice. But they don't directly work with the university just as if you did with the government, like they'll do that for you, they process the application. No, you put it, and then when you accept it, you're supposed to have your offer ready on hand and you submit that to them as well. So that's the only difference. But hopefully, if all goes well and it's a successful application, you'll get a sponsorship by the MOE to study abroad.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And can you tell us a bit about the UK admissions, like what exams you had to take, how long and when did you apply, when did you start applying, all
Sure.
those good
These little details. So, studying in the United Kingdom, before I started to study, when I did my research, I didn't do all the research needed. So, I did my IELTS and then come to apply. They were like, no, Fatma, we don't need this IELTS. There's another IELTS you need to do. So basically, all UK universities for the visa itself, they need you to do the IELTS UKVI. There's not much difference between the two tests, but it's just attested by the UKVI, so it's no different. Like it's not harder or anything. Once you do the IELTS UKVI, and it's just an English requirement needed, you then worry about the other stuff. I think the main thing to determine how you'll apply to universities in the UK is which schools you graduated from in the United Arab Emirates, whether it was American, public, or even government schools. Sorry, 1 second.
It's okay, Fatma.
Sorry.
Take your
So basically, for British school, sorry, I'll pass the question to Hazza until I can answer this question.
okay.
We could go because we just have a question right now. What are the MSATs and who needs to take them? I personally didn't do them. Does anyone here have experience with the MSATs?
Yeah, I did. I took the MSATs around spring of my so the last semester of my senior year in high school, and they're basically the sort of like the national exams that um, you sort of like have to like take in order to at least in my case graduate high school, because I know that I think that at least what we were told during high school is that you need to take these MSATs. Like it doesn't even matter like the score. Like you just have to take them if you want to graduate. So during my time, I believe they've added more tests, but during my time there were 4 tests. Those are comprised of English, math, um, physics, and Arabic, and each of them is out of 2,000. And some of these scores can actually be used like in the substitute of like standardized testing scores. Like I'm pretty sure that for example, like here in this country, NYU Abu Dhabi, they can you can choose to send your MSAT scores over your SAT scores if you believe like your MSAT scores are much better than your SATs. So some universities like NYU Abu Dhabi, they can consider that as a valid standardized testing option. So I think that there is a some merit into like studying for these exams rather than just taking it just because like you have to.
I believe they're also essential for when you apply to scholarships, and their locals are also required to take them. And I actually used my MSATs to apply to NYUAD because I believe they were stronger than my SAT scores. Yeah.
Sorry, I keep muting myself by mistake. Anyways, so yeah. Um, uh, oh, I think Fatma disappeared for a second. Okay, so I'd like to go to Shaima next. And or Hazza, any of you, if you'd like to explain the US admissions, because I understand that the NYU AD system is the same system they use to apply to the US as well. So if you'd give us like an image about what it is exactly.
All right, sure. Uh, in terms of the US admissions, you have splinter universities such as the UC system, and I assume the NYU system as well uses a proprietary application. But otherwise, you have one central application hub called the Common App, similar to the UCAS that the UK does use. So the Common App is pretty large, it is pretty daunting, it is pretty confusing, and it's pretty much everything that you don't like. I remember it took me quite maybe a week to get that thing done, but it has everything on it, every single detail about your life, including what you're like the A to Z of you. And that's a good thing because it gives universities and colleges a holistic look at you. And I think the Common App is great, but at the same time, it is really confusing. So, the best way to go about doing the Common App is to go through it section by section. So, there's an academic section, and you can just like plug in your grades. There's a standardized testing section. And if you've done the SATs or the ACTs, you can also plug that in. And it also has details about your family that you can add on. So, I think the Common App also like gives you instructions about how to fill it out. But I will not bore you with the details because I'm sure like they have extensive documentation about how to fill it out. It's just tedious work. It's really tedious work, but they do give you the documentation to sort of help you fill it out. Now, the thing that I want to talk about on the Common App, however, is the personal essay. And the personal essay is a slice of your personality, pretty much. It's personal in terms of sort of showing potential admissions counselors uh, and admissions, or I guess the people who choose if you get admitted or not, whether or not they should admit you based upon your personality. And the topics on the personal essay range from year to year, but I think they only switch them out every 2 years. And the personal essay is a 600 to 650 word essay, I assume, if that hasn't changed, on what you were like, what it means, what certain values mean to you, and an outlook of who you are and what you stand for, pretty much. And I would say sincerity is the most important aspect to have on the essay. While I assume that you could lie about sort of your personality, like it's going to show as being not as genuine as who you really are. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. I'd recommend sort of focusing on specific facets of you and letting them shine for the admissions counselors to see. And I'm sure everyone here has an interesting story that they could share, or they have something interesting about them that they could tailor that essay to. And that's what I would give as my advice for the Common App essay. Moreover, the US is infamous for its standardized testing. You've got the SAT and you have the ACTs, and both of them are pretty much bad and sort of dated. I wish we don't have to do standardized testing anymore, but sadly we have to. I know that due to COVID, standardized testing is not required for this year, but I assume that they're going to bring it back as soon as this pandemic is hopefully over. And due to that, I would explain that the SATs are usually harder than the ACTs. The biggest difference between the SATs and the ACTs is the SATs give you more time, but they drill you on harder questions. The ACT gives you less time, but the content is easier to learn. It's just how fast can you get all of the questions done? And I never really did the SATs, so I can't really give more details about that. But I have done the ACTs, and the ACTs, and I guess the SATs as well. This advice can apply to the SATs as well. Uh, Constant practice is the only way that you're going to improve. I have seen people go from a 20 in the ACT to a 32 in a matter of a few months with possibly 2 to 3 hours or even less of study every single day. And if you find a slump in your life where you have free time, such as winter break, for example, or summer break between junior and senior year of high school, you should focus on the SATs or the ACTs. You should study for them. And trust me on this because you will lock yourself out of a lot of opportunities. You will lock yourself out of applying to potential top tier universities if you do not like work on those standardized tests. While they are dated and they are ancient, they are still necessary. Not because so even if you do not support them, like I don't support them, as you can tell, it's still necessary to get a good score on them because like while US admissions counselors say that they have holistic admissions, what they really look at mostly is the GPA and the standardized testing scores. So you always want to look good, and that's when the selective picking begins. And the selective picking is you have two students, both of them have the same GPA, they have the same test scores. Which one gets in? Only one has to get in, or I guess only one can get in. And that's when the personal essays, as well as all the supplemental essays that you wrote, as well as any other like extracurriculars that you did, that is when they really matter. And sometimes it does come down to that decision, especially at the top tier universities such as the Ivy Leagues. And I suppose my biggest advice in US admissions is always study for the standardized tests. It is not the end of the world if you do get a bad score on a standardized test. It just means that you need to spend more time to practice because I'm sure anyone at all can get a high score if they try hard enough. And in terms of the Common App, it is pretty straightforward. And they sort of give you an explanation for how to fill each section in.
Okay, so I'm guessing now I'm going to explain the UK admission process. It's not that different from the American. There is some like differences, but we also need to write a personal statement. However, it's like 11 lines, almost 11 lines, and it is true on the UCAS website because all you need to do on the UCAS website when you start your application is fill in your details, passports, and everything. Then you put in your academia, grade 10, grade 11, all these. When it comes to the personal statement, it is a major difference of the decision whether you're going to get into university or not. Because even when you're talking about the highest universities, it is inevitable you will get a few students with, for example, all A's or all B's. So what determines who gets in and who doesn't? It's that personal statement. So make sure to make your personal statements stand out, and make sure to make your personal statements show your passion about what you're studying. I was studying physics with, I wanted to study physics with astrophysics. I made sure to say that in year 10, I had work experience in Dubai Police Headquarters and the physics department, and in Dubai Water Electricity Authority. Electricity has to do with physics. I mentioned all that, everything, because they do care about grades, but they want to see what else you have in store. What like makes you a candidate, an ideal candidate between all the others. So I think that's my tip in the UCAS website. And if you don't need to go through the UCAS website, because UCAS is mainly for first year admissions and some foundation. If you need to do foundation, because for example, you did government in grade 12, or in American section, you didn't do the required APs to get directly into first year, and you need to do foundation, you apply directly through the university. When you enter the website and you read the requirements, it will tell you, do you need to log in through UCAS or do you need to submit an application online? It will explain everything. Just read the requirements and see what you have. And if you do the foundation, there's this misconception that, oh, I'm going to do foundation, then bachelor, I'm going to graduate late or whatever. Bachelor in the UK is like almost all bachelors in the UK are 3 years. So with the foundation, it's a total of 4. It doesn't make a difference. You're not studying an extra year. So when I say I'm first year in the UK, it's like I studied my second year of university, if that makes sense. So just the UCAS website also has its instructions and everything. Just fill in your information, write a good personal statement, and also you need a recommendation letter. My tip for that as well is to let someone in your school with a good position, I write it for you. Luckily, my physics teacher was the head of physics in school, and he wrote my recommendation letter for my degree, physics. It wouldn't make sense for my business teacher to write my physics recommendation letter unless I was studying business. If you see where I'm going with this, so make sure the person writing it also is someone that can like actually show that you're good in the field you're gonna study. So I think that's it for UK admissions.
There is a question that says for UK applications, does the work experience has the same weight as A-level grades? I'm not pretty sure if I understand the question right, but if you do have any background about that, you'd like to
I
answer.
mean, like by what I understood from the question, if they're saying is does it have the same weighting? Like if I did the work experience, do I not need to do that? No, I don't think so. For me, I was in a British school. I didn't do year 13, so I can go direct entry to first year. I stopped in year 12, but I took a different pathway. I took foundation year, and then after foundation year, I took the 3 years. So if you don't want to do year 13, you don't need to move to an American school, or you can stay in the British with your grade 12 grades, then go do the foundation. That depends, of course, if the foundation accepts you at the university or not.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Fatma. I'd like to redirect the question we had before to Shaima about the US admissions or the NYU AD. If you'd like to elaborate a bit on your personal essay topic, or what advice would you give for students? And there's also a question regarding the candidate weekend for NYU AD. Someone says she has a candidate weekend or he, sorry, says you have a weekend for NYU AD soon. What do you recommend for it, and what is the process of it? They did not tell us much.
So I'd like to get started with talking about the personal essay a little bit. So as the name suggests, it's a bit personal, so I can share only to some extent. Essentially what I talked about was my cultural identity and how I sort of struggled with that a lot. And so basically I tried to showcase this, this transition in my life where I used to conceal sort of parts of myself and my culture, and how I started to embrace it. I sort of highlighted that transition and talked about that. And I made sure to showcase that through telling a story. So I believe that's what you should do, is to just sort of narrate the events, or narrate what you want to show through a story. And so it doesn't only, so what you want to do is you're trying to show off your story writing skills and also your critical thinking skills through that, because you're sort of giving them insight on the thought process and how you think, and you're sort of establishing that line of reasoning. And I remember once my cousin gave me this advice where she said, if you were to drop your personal essay, a paper with your personal essay on it, and someone were to pick it up, if they were able to say that, oh, this is Shaima, or this was written by Shaima, that's when you know that you have written a compelling Common App essay, or at least a successful one. And I feel like two key components to focus on is your imagination. I feel like that you should be as imaginative as possible and just let that lead you, and also focus on the structure. So how you want to start your essay, how you want to end it. You can sort of be creative and go for a circular plot, and just you can go above and beyond with your personal essay. And it's really an opportunity for you to, tell them who you are, and to show an aspect of yourself that you haven't shown elsewhere in your application. And so I feel like the personal essay is really an advantage, because I thought it was, as much as I dreaded the process, it was kind of enjoyable when I look back at it. Like crafting the essay and getting to know myself more, and actually being proud of my work and my application. In terms of the candidate weekend question, so I attended candidate weekend in March. So I was we were the last batch to attend candidate weekend. So I'm assuming you guys are also doing it online. I also did it online, which is an advantage, because now I can tell you about all the online stuff. So basically what happened is, I'm not sure if it's the same now, but it's not, it used to be, I believe, heavily based on evaluation. So they would interview you and sort of look at you closely. But now it's just about you having fun, honestly. And I believe they've created different Facebook groups. If you're not aware of the Facebook groups, I think you should reach out and ask to join the Facebook groups and sort of interact on there and speak to people and create groups. And then we had this segment where we had to talk about an object that reminds us of home. And so what I did is I wanted to be creative and I wanted to, let my personality shine through the screen. And so what I did is I created a montage of an object that reminds me of home, which was Dihn Oud. So basically I talked about that through a video and I posted the video on Facebook. And I'm the type of person who just I'm not all about that stuff. So I really had to push myself a little bit. And I think, yeah, you should really put in the effort to get to know your colleagues, even if it's just, virtually or online. And I know it can be really, really challenging and really hard, but just talk, just talk about yourself, post the pictures of what you've been up to in quarantine, what you've been doing about yourself on the group, and just sort of reach out to people. If you see that someone has similar interests to yours, just reach out to them. Like I remember I stumbled upon this girl from Turkey and I'm really interested in Turkish culture. So I reached out to her. There was this girl who was, she used to be a One Direction stan. So I just reached out to her and talked to her. And so just bond over these little things. I think the little things are the ones that matter. So yeah, I talked a lot, sorry.
Yeah, actually, I just want to make a remark because Shema did talk about essays, and anybody who has ever been through the Common App, process, this is probably the worst part of it. This is where you're going to spend weeks and weeks, if not months, of your time just working on solely that part of your application. Now, there was this one thing that I just wanted to, before we go ahead and answer the rest of the questions y'all might have, I feel like there's something really important that I want to state. Because this application process almost feels like you're trying to sell yourself, like sell the best version of you to your dream university, the number one university that you've been dying to get into. You're in one way or another going to almost craft a narrative about you that you think they want to see, that you think the admissions officers want to see from you. And I think that is probably one of the worst, mistakes that you can do, honestly. Because I feel like, the personal essay is, 50% of that whole term is personal. And, some people might, I've done this mistake before. I've tried to, I've tried to implement parts of me that were personal, but then, looking back at it, I felt like it was inauthentic. Like it didn't represent who I really was, what I really stood for. And I feel like if there's anything that you absolutely should do, it's try to craft the most honest, the most brutally honest and most personal version of you that you possibly can. And don't think about what makes you you. Don't think about what you want the admissions officer to see, and then they're like, oh, okay, he's this and that, so let's admit him. And then you're like, oh, okay, so I should write about me being this and that. That is not how it works, and that is not how admissions officers evaluate you in the first place. They're looking for people who are honest and raw, and straight to the bone about their personality, about their own stories, about just what makes them being them, what makes them be unique in who they are. Because if everybody writes about what type of student this university wants to get into, they're all going to receive the same essays. They're all going to receive the same stories with the same people, just with different names. And I cannot stress enough about how important but also uncomfortable it is to really dive deep down into yourself and then find out who you really are, then putting those those words into paper. But it's absolutely essential, and I cannot stress this enough. It's going to be the best advice that anyone can ever give you about your essay, period. It's going to take it's going to take a long amount of time. It's going to take weeks of drafting, redrafting, taking ideas scrapping ideas, making other ideas and scrapping them, then constantly changing them before you finally arrive to something and you're like, this might be the one, right? Like this might be it. Like I've worked so hard and I've finally arrived at this one. I've shown it to people. They think it represents me, like the real authentic me. And like that's it, right? So I feel like when you've arrived to that, you've done everything that you possibly can, and the rest is up to the admissions process. But yeah, honestly, number one advice: Common App essay, even the UCAS essay. Honestly, Common App UCAS essay. Stay true to yourself. Don't write about what you think they want to hear about you. Write about you and only what you want to hear from yourself.
Couldn't agree more. Really emphasize on this point.
That's definitely true, and it even helps with your self-identity, like trip throughout your life. It kind of helps you discover yourself, what you actually like, your passions. So it's a really, really interesting experience to go through, and honestly, one of the best. Even if you go through such a hard time through it, in the end, when you
Absolutely.
it's amazing.
Yeah,
I
it's very brutalizing, but you do find yourself in the process, and as much as how there are trials and tribulations of the whole process, it's not in vain. Like you're always gonna get something out of it. To me, it's like I'm more confident in who I am now than who I was like 2 years ago, trying to appeal to some like admissions panel who like has never seen me before.
I definitely agree, and you'll never know if you don't try. And I mean, even if you never thought you'd get accepted to one of the best universities in the world, you'd never regret going through that process. Even if you didn't get accepted in the end, you'd still look back, even if it wasn't a really good experience, you'd gain so much from it just by going through that experience and applying and thinking of what to say and what to do. So I definitely agree on that point. I'd like to ask Fatma maybe again if she has any tips about the UK admissions and anything else you'd like to
Yes, I just
anyways.
mentioned if you want to study in the UK or like universities abroad, sometimes it can be overwhelming, as you said with the app, the UCAS or whatever. So there's no shame in asking for help. Um, I went through an agency to help me with my application, and it was completely free. They didn't charge me for the application or anything. They're called IDP. They do for several countries, but like from my side, my perspective in the UK, they were amazing. I think there's in Abu Dhabi and there's in Dubai as well. And now with the COVID, they can do everything online for you. Just give them all your documents and everything like concerned to your application regarding your application, and they'll help you. To be honest, I think it also gave me an advantage applying with them. They know what they're doing. They'll tell you, okay, this is good. This is with. So I really recommend search IDP, get in touch with them if you want to study abroad. They'll help you with the UCAS application. The UCAS application at the end, when you like want to submit it, there's like a fee of I believe £10 as well. They even paid that for me. I didn't need to pay anything, so that was great. So just look into that as well.
Great, thank you guys so much. And if anyone has any of my panelists have any last note about or advice or anything about essays, recommendations, or the entire process, speak now.
Okay. So I think I left the last point, which is arguably the most important point, in my opinion. As much as your parents' happiness is superior, I would say your own personal satisfaction and happiness is even higher than that. After all, your parents usually, they only want what's best for you. But at the same time, that could clash with your own personal opinion or your own personal sort of plan for yourself. And in this case, I would say don't be afraid to sort of try to compromise with them. But at the same time, always try to make your demands be heard. Don't be sort of bullied into a specific major or a specific university. Try to use reason, and at the same time, try to like speak to them in a collected manner. Because at the same time, it's sort of the bridge between being a teenager and an adult. And I think fighting for that sort of independence is also important in case things do not go as planned. and I wish everyone the best of luck in applying.
Thanks, Azza. I just want to clear up one question. By the way, if anybody has any questions, because we are reaching towards the tail end of this event, please feel free to ask them like right now, and we'll try and get to them as much as possible. And if you want to ask it with your microphone, please feel free to like raise your hand, and we'll unmute you, and then you can ask us directly. And if you want to ask any of us panelists anything specific to us. There is this one question by somebody that says, what do we do after getting rejected from colleges? And I feel like this is something that we'll cover in another event, but let me just keep it short and sweet. I was rejected from NYU Abu Dhabi twice. I spent 2 years of my life basically applying there, and I got rejected twice. What do you do after that? You move on. Like, that's basically it. You move on, because honestly, life does go on. And like, I personally wouldn't think that like I would be like right now in a different university, and I'm just as happy in what I'm doing, what program I'm in, the people I'm surrounded with, the things that I'm surrounding myself with, the all of the work that I'm doing. It honestly, getting rejected, like nobody wants to be rejected from any university, especially their dream university. And it's definitely going to be hard. But the only way you're going to find out that things are, going to be all good, and that, you're still going to thrive regardless of where you go, is when you actually go and do it. Is like when you actually go and, experience it. Like me telling you this is not going to be, is not going to be how you're going to realize it. You just got to go through it and then realize that, hey, even if you got rejected from, whatever your dream university was, hey, it's okay. Life goes on, and you still absolutely have the potential. Even if you thought about going to that university, that just shows that you have the potential to succeed no matter where you go. And trust me, I'm sure that everybody here, just by attending this workshop, has the potential to succeed in whatever they want to do.
I agree 100%. And I feel like we all get to a point where we kind of fantasize about going to that dream university. And when that dream kind of gets shattered, we go to a state where we're like, oh, what do I do next? What am I gonna do now? But that's when you have to be your strongest and kind of pull through that. And like the phase after that is one of the best phases ever. For example, I got rejected from my dream postgraduate program, but I feel like now after going through that, I'm kind of like discovering new things, checking new things out, and I'm still alive. Like nothing happened. I'm still alive and I'm living, and
Yeah,
life is great.
you're still alive. That's what
Exactly.
matters. That's the most important part.
Exactly. So I don't like no one should ever get discouraged if they don't get accepted to their dream college or any other college in general, because there's like not even hundred, like thousands and millions of universities around the world, not even just here. So I don't think, yeah, that's why I had to say it. And I think
It's
Fatma
not
had
going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be the end of the world. Just, I know it feels like it's the end of the world, but trust me, it's not. Just
it is,
keep on pushing, and you're going to see that, you have a bright future ahead of you, regardless of wherever you go.
and then you never know. Sometimes it kind of happens for the best. So
Exactly.
yeah, so you might be like this kind of gets rejected, and then you actually find something that you're truly interested in, truly in love with the like society, whatever, wherever it is you want to go, and the best comes next, inshallah, yani.
Inshallah.
Always positive.
Exactly, always be positive. Like a quote my parents used to always tell me is that this is what you wanted. You really wanted this. You didn't get it. You're now like you're going into something else. What's this? This is God's choice. It's not your choice. That's even better. So always look on the positive side. Like I'll take both words from Hazza and Khalid. They both said amazing things. Hazza saying about the pressure of family and everything. I totally understand. Me being the first grandchild, ever since I was 6 years old. Oh, Dr. Fatma, Dr. Fatma. But it works out, even with the rejection. I applied to Manchester, and in 2019, I got rejected. The same email that sent me the rejection. I sobbed. I went crying to my mom, like, I only wanted Manchester. Now what? She's like, now life, you know? I applied to Leeds. I went to Leeds. I tried again Manchester. Okay, I got in. But even if I didn't get into Manchester, this is life, you know? So wherever life takes you, all the best, really. Be positive.
I agree, and I love that.
Can I just
Shayma,
add something? Yeah.
yeah.
What I did after I got rejected from my dream school, which is, like I said, Harvard, which I was fantasizing about since seventh grade, I kind of turned it into a fun situation. So we had this assignment for English class to write about, basically we had to write personal narratives, and I wrote about the rejection, and I also created a montage and a video of how I got rejected and the whole story and stuff. So it was like I turned it into a positive situation. I feel like it was really fun. Yeah.
I love that. That is such a wonderful idea, honestly. Might think of doing that myself. So in the end, I just wanted to conclude with a question for my panelists. I want to ask you, how did you guys make your final decisions? Just in the end, to wrap everything up.
Well, do you want a short answer or the long answer? I think we have a short amount of time, but let me just condense it really fast. So NYU didn't work out the second time. So did naturally what anyone would. I went for the second best option, and that was AUS, and a College of Architecture, Art and Design. You know, arguably the not biased in saying this, but arguably the best design school in the Middle East. So I was like, hey, like I have nothing to lose by going here. Like it's still a really great place. So that's how I just arrived at the final decision. Okay, I got rejected. All right, second option, and then hey, I got accepted. So you know,
Um, I think how I came to the final conclusion that I'd go to NYU AD was I got rejected by the two universities I applied to in the US, which were Harvard and MIT. And then in the UK, I applied to the UK as well. And I just I honestly, until this day, I do not know why I applied to the UK. It was so chaotic, it was so useless. And I just did not know what I was putting myself into. And so obviously I wasn't gonna go there because I had no idea what all that was about. And so my only option was NYU AD, and that's where I am now. Yeah.
So the question is like, how am I now in Manchester? I believe it's all the factors we mentioned in this session, all these little things, they affected my decision. Location, weather, people, community, everything had to do with it, even extracurriculars. So I started canceling out. Um, uh, as Shaima mentioned, like you have safety options, so I had many options, maybe 10 plus. I started narrowing them down one by one until I chose Manchester, which had my dream degree and even like everything about the university. Alhamdulillah, I'm enjoying now in the course. Like, who would have thought that the videos I used to see in class in year 7 of the physicists and scientists are my lecturers now in the university? Like, all these things. So just make sure to get a paper. I recommend get an A4 paper, write everything on the paper and start cancelling out one by one, positives, negatives, and pray istikhara. And God be with you, inshallah.
And we sent a handout. So if no one, if you guys check your emails, you'll find a handout that would have like the pointers we mentioned throughout the session. You can use that too. It'll be very helpful. Okay, I'll move to Hazza now.
Sorry, I sort of zoned out there. Could you repeat what the question was?
So it was how did you make your final decision?
Well, I wish I had a lot of choice in my final decision, but I didn't. But that's okay because it just shows sometimes even with all the effort that you put in, things don't always go as planned, but having satisfaction with what you're given is sort of a good way to move forward with life. And Khalid did mention that.
yeah, it works out.
I
Even if it doesn't go as planned, it works out.
It always works out. It always works out. I
Yeah,
guess.
and now you can go ahead.
I guess. Sorry, I'm just gonna finish off my point so I could talk. Like, I guess so you could talk about it. And I guess life always works out in the end. If you fail once, try again. If you fail twice, that's fine. You could always try again, or you could choose to do something else. You don't have to focus on one specific aspect. But thankfully, it worked out in my favor, though, because I did manage to sort of fall in love with Purdue, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah, like I just want everyone to realize, like who's still with us right now, that basically almost all of us have, gone through some form of rejection in this admissions process, and like this last question was really important for us to have at the closing end of this event because because like to you guys, we're basically trying to help you with telling us about our experiences, so you could learn from them, and you can realize that rejection is something that's okay. I mean, like we've almost all of us have gone through it, and then look at where we're at right now. Look at what we're doing and everything like that. Things are working out okay, and it's like very sobering experiences that sort of like you think that, oh no, that we'd have this like these very cool stories and whatever, like, oh yeah, I got into this and that, and but no, like a lot of us have ups and downs that we've gone through, and that's completely fine. And you might have those ups and downs, and that's completely fine too. That's just the most important part of this. If there's anything you take away from this, from this whole event, just remember that you are going to have some ups and downs, and it's absolutely going to be okay. Just one foot forward, keep on moving, then you're gonna realize whatever you do, wherever you go, you're gonna you're gonna do big things. You're gonna go big places, regardless of wherever you end up.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Khalid. And I'd just like to ask if any of the attendees have any last questions because we have like 3 minutes left. If anyone has any questions for our panelists, just raise your hand or send them through the Q&A box or the chat, and we'd love to answer them. And if not, we'll just wait here for like 3 more minutes.
I believe there was somebody who asked if they could ask about certain panelists specifically, and if they could reach us through our emails or any sort of like form of contact. So if I'm not sure if you guys do you guys have any like sort of like contact info that if you want to share with the attendees, if they have any questions like after the event, if you want to provide that, like go ahead. And
Sure.
like if you have any Instagram accounts or anything like that, any sort of like public accounts, they want to ask you like after the event, I mean, share it with them.
You guys
So,
can DM jagged.world on Instagram, and we can connect you with the person you want to be connected with or send you their email. Yeah, use our
I mean,
Instagram and all our links and everything else, our mailing lists.
go ahead and put that link over there in the chat so everybody,
The link for
go
you.
follow Jagged World. Any questions, go ahead and DM Jagged. We're gonna, yeah. Alrighty
Hazza,
then.
something?
yeah, I just wanted to add a closing thought because I know some people in this
Oh
meeting
wait,
right now.
somebody has a question. All
I
Yeah.
do
right.
have a question.
Okay, Hazza
If
can.
you take an internship.
No, answer the question first. It's more
Yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So who's
So
going
the
to answer the
floor,
question?
can
So
I?
the sure,
I mean,
definitely.
for work experience and internships, I mentioned that in my personal statements. Working in DIWA and Dubai Police Headquarters, I briefly mentioned them in the personal statement.
Hmm.
So I believe that's
Yeah, that's for
most
UCAS.
important.
In the Common App, though, I believe that you'd list them in the extracurriculars section. So they do have a category that is specifically listed as like your role as like an intern, or there's a category that says internship. So within there, you basically write that up. And I think there's a character limit on what you can describe your title and the role of the activity was. So just remember to keep it like short, concise, and sweet, just like you'd have like on a resume or like a CV or anything like that. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
All right. Final thoughts or closing thing, I suppose. I know some people in attendance came from personal correspondence with them. Uh, you guys have my email. if you have any questions at all, we can always sort of open up a correspondence and I could answer any questions you might have about US admissions. For UK admissions, I can try my best, but you could probably ask Fatma, who's way more well-versed in UK admissions. Whatever happens, you could always ask any of the mentors at Jagged, because I'm sure they will do their best to try and help you. And I wish you all have a pleasant afternoon.
Okay,
All
perfect.
right.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you, my panelists here. Thank you guys for attending. I'd just like to mention again that you should follow us on jagged.world on Instagram and have a pleasant afternoon and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Yeah, huge shout
Thank
out
you.
to everybody who's come over here. You know, this wouldn't be possible without you guys attending. If you have any sort of questions or anything like that, you know, be sure to reach out through Jagged. And yeah, I hope you have a pleasant afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are. And you know, big shout out obviously to all the panelists, to John, to Salim, Tabia, um, Aisha for being here and you know helping pull this all together. And yeah, I wish you all the best.